In the 30 or so years since a conservative Christian movement declared war on secular humanism, we have seen the Christian right exercise increasing political influence on U.S. policy with the stated intention of preserving traditional family values. This effectively marketed agenda, with the domination of women at its core, has affected many through the use of the pulpit and the family. In reality, this movement is an extreme and distinctive form of sexism operating within a religious subculture that claims to follow in the tradition of Jesus. Closed hierarchical systems are by nature exclusive and resistant to change, and this one purports to function with a mandate from God. Christian fundamentalism is notable for its emphasis on a male God, its discriminatory view of women, and its lack of women in leadership roles. For today's Christian fundamentalists, limiting women's freedom and suppressing the feminine in both women and men are the true primary traditional family values. As women who came of age in the midst of this thrust and who looked to Jesus as a teacher and friend, we challenge the misguided assumptions that have created the current psychological and political atmosphere. These principles and doctrines are contrary to Jesus' message of equality and inclusiveness. Jesus' associations with women blatantly challenged the cultural norms when he clearly validated women as equals and honored children as models. His work was filled with the ministrations of the traditional stereotypic feminine: tending, feeding, healing, touching, and encouraging. Rather than an apocalyptic Jesus, a conquering warrior, he was a man marked by naked vulnerability, both in his infant arrival and in his tortured end. This is the Jesus we know from the sacred writings and through our personal experiences of his spirit. This book is designed to explore the repression of women and the feminine as the motivating force behind fundamentalist and dominionist dogma. We expose the insidious effects of this insensitivity to women and the destruction of the feminine expression of power as we examine how women and their dreams are progressively deadened. We do not mean to ignore how this system impacts men. In fact, the many women's stories in this book clearly reveal the tragic effects. I hope that many men will read the book and see the parallels between the male perspective and the female experience. We've chosen to focus on how fundamentalism treats and affects women.
It's a fabulous introduction, and now adding your voice to it.
My daughters don't understand why I am working on this book. The world they have known is so unlike the one in which I grew up. Sure, they still have to do the internal editing when they hear a minister say, "In him was life, and that life was the light of men." Does that mean men, or both women and men? And when they were small on the trip to the firehouse, when the chief talked about the firemen, I would clarify for us all, now is it only men who can be firefighters? Because they have always been listened to, it would be impossible for them to sit back in class and not insist on their turn to be recognized in a discussion. They have not been threatened with hell as punishment for not accepting the mystery of God and the message of Jesus distilled into 4 simple laws. Their bodies, their choices, their faith, and their passions have been honored and respected since their infancy, so they move in the world in an entirely different way than I did. I have learned much from watching their journeys as they have freely explored their interests, spoken their truths, and grown into their bodies with grace and strength. I grieve my own missed opportunities to fully develop and discover my gifts. As parents, we teach by how we live, regardless of the rhetoric we offer. I know that the limitations of my voice and confidence have affected my daughters, but I know that my movement toward a more whole and integrated self also teaches them and inspires their unfolding, just as my own mother's ongoing journey to her own expression strengthens mine. Still, I feel like David preparing to meet Goliath in trying to describe how fundamentalism terrorizes the souls of women. I'm a stay-at-home mom, challenging a huge, organized, well-financed effort to subjugate women in the name of God, and I must protest. I remember a dream of another giant from when I was about 7. The giant was chasing me up a flight of stairs, and each step was higher than my entire body, and it seemed impossible to escape. I awoke terrified of being overtaken and overwhelmed by the giant. As I lay awake, too frightened to return to sleep, I realized I could alter my dream. I decided I could choose to see the giant as friendly and save myself from destruction, or at least from my fear. Then I could go back to sleep, which I did. Now I understand this dream as a metaphor for the way in which, at an early age, I chose to go to sleep and yield, unknowingly cooperating with a dominating and disempowering system. I did this for the sake of my own preservation. I just didn't realize I was asleep for so long.